Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss books. And today I'm here to talk to you guys about everything that I managed to read in the month of August.
It's coffee time.
So August was my birthday month and I was really excited because I thought I was gonna have more free time to read, but I'm not complaining because I ended up reading 8 books, and the reason behind me not reading so much is because when I was in Spain I thought I would have more free time, but I was really busy with my parents and my family and friends, which is a good thing because that's what I went there to do, you know, to hang out with my parents, to spend time with them and with my friends, because I don't see them as often as I would love to because we live obviously in different countries. So I did spend a lot of time with my parents at the beach with friends, and yeah, so I didn't have so much time to read as I hoped. But from the things that I read, most of them I really enjoyed, and I say most of them because there's a couple of disappointments there, as sometimes there is. So I'm here to let you guys know what I thought of them. If you're new here, welcome first of all, and let me quickly update you how we rate books here. We rate books with Coffee Max, and also I like to start with the lowest rating to the highest, so we always end up on a positive note. The first one is Darling by Mercedes M. Yardley, and the problem that I had with this book is a problem that I sometimes have when books are pitched to be horror and they're not. There are horror elements in the book, but I would say this is more of a drama mystery thriller. I know it's really hard to categorize books because a lot of genres sometimes kind of merge, and you know, this is not to put blame on anybody, but it is more of a, you know, drama thriller than it is a horror. So I guess going into it I was expecting a more creepy book, and it wasn't. When our main character was a teenager, she was pregnant and she decided to leave her hometown with her boyfriend at the time and start a new life away from the town and away from her mother. So things didn't end up working that well with that boyfriend, and now our main character is a single mother of 2. So she gets a notice that her mom has passed away and that she has left her the house. Now, she doesn't really want to return to that hometown or to anything that would remind her of her mother, but she's struggling at the moment financially, so she thinks she can go back to the house and, you know, just stay there for as long as needed so that she can save up some money and move away. When she returns to her hometown, then it's where things start to get a little bit, you know, iffy for me. I started to notice a lot of drama and a lot of weird relationships between her and the people in this town, people from her past, and there were a lot of things that didn't vibe so well with me. I just didn't like how our main character was treated by the people in town, and at the beginning of the book you think of her as, you know, a really strong woman that, you know, has been fighting and hustling all her life, and now suddenly she becomes a little bit more submissive, and suddenly, you know, everybody in town is saying all of these things about her, and I don't know, it just didn't quite fit for me, the character. Like, there's a shift in the character that I didn't really understand when it comes to her own personality and the way she would act or react to certain things. The book also gets a little bit repetitive for my taste, and there are not too many things happening to keep the story engaging enough, and I struggled to get to the end of the book. So those were my 2 cents on Darling. It is a new release, so, you know, if you want to give it a chance, be my guest. This is just my own subjective opinion on the book. But maybe if you go into it without expecting a full-on horror, then you might be also mentally a little bit more prepared than I was. Then we have Lucky Girl, How I Became a Horror Writer, a Krampus story by M. Rickard, and this one is going to be so perfect for you guys to read during Christmas because, as the title implies, it does have something to do with Krampus himself, and I really like the character of Krampus, always have, and I did enjoy this one. It's a short novella, so it's also not too long. We follow Rose. She is a struggling writer and also has always a really hard time during Christmas season because it tends to be a you know, a time where she really feels lonely. So one night at a diner, she meets some strangers and they decide to meet for Christmas and to have kind of like a party where everybody tells each other some ghost stories. Based on those horror stories that are told that night, she decides to write a book about one of them that involves Krampus. So that is what I will let you know, but I really did like the way that this book started. It kind of reminded me a little bit of, you know, those older gothic tales a little bit. And I really did enjoy to hear this Krampus story that they presented in this book. It is sadly a little bit short because it's a novella, so maybe it would have been nice to hear a lot more of those ghost stories and not just based it on one. But I'm excited to see what the author does next. Now let's talk about The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. So you guys know I love Riley Sager. I was really excited about this one and it wasn't as good as I hoped. But honestly, the more I think about it, the less I hate it. It's not like I hated the book, I was just a little bit disappointed because it was not as good as other of his stories and other of his twists have been for me personally. My favorite still remains Lock Every Door. But the more I think about this book, the less I hate it, the more I'm embracing it. I feel like this book for me is like Grady Hendrix books. Like, I'm always on the fence with them. Like, I don't absolutely love them, but I also don't absolutely hate them. It's kind of like a weird relationship. So this one feels to me exactly like that. So as you can expect from Riley Sager, this is a mystery thriller and you do get a couple of twists and turns that are unexpected, to say the least. In this case, really unexpected. So the main story is we have here an actress that after losing her husband, she has been through a lot and Hollywood is really, you know, going after her with paparazzis because she develops a drinking problem, dealing, you know, with the grief of losing her husband. So her mother suggests that she should go to the house that they have at this lake to just spend some time by herself, kind of detox from all the alcohol and kind of get her life together, you know, kind of get a grip. So our main character decides to go and she gets to meet the other people that are spending some time by this lake. So one of the people that she gets to meet is a couple that live in the house across the lake, and the wife one day mysteriously disappears. So she decides that she's gonna do whatever it takes to find out what happened to that woman and figure out who is responsible for her disappearance. Did she leave voluntarily? Did somebody kidnap her? Is she dead? What happened? So she gets really invested and focused on finding out, to the point where she gets a little bit, you know, too obsessed with it. So I thought this was going to be your typical mystery thriller, you know, but with some sort of twist because Riley Sager. But I was not expecting the type of twist that we got in this book. And I don't want to talk about it because it would be a spoiler. And I don't want to spoil the experience for anybody, good or bad. It's still an experience that I don't want to take away from you. What I can tell you is, as somebody that has read every single one of Riley Sager's books, this one is not on the top of my list. That's what I can tell you. I still don't know exactly what I would put it on my ranking. But let's say I just didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. Our next book is The Nicest Girl by Sophie Jo, and this is the ARC copy that was kindly sent to me by the publisher Uclump Publishing, which also published Mina and the Undead. And I was really excited to get into this one because I felt like it was going to be such a relatable book for me. Even though this is a YA story, I felt like I could connect with the main character because it is a girl that, as the book title implies, she's so nice that she's unable to say no and unable to see when other people are just trying to take advantage of her, which is something that I feel I went through a lot when I was younger. For most of us, including myself, when I was growing up, you know, I kept hearing that I had to be a good girl, that, you know, in social gatherings I have to behave certain ways, that I had to do what was considered, you know, the right thing. And even in situations where uncomfortable for me, I was supposed to smile and, you know, be polite all the time. And when I grew up, I realized that I had the power to say no to things that were uncomfortable for me, to things that I didn't want to do, and I stopped putting that pressure on myself of always pleasing everybody. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't help each other and things like that, and we shouldn't be there for each other, but there are some limits sometimes, and it is hard to tell the line between, you know, people that really need our help and people that are trying to take advantage of us. And I think that this book really reflected that really well with our main character, and you get to see her struggling and thinking about different characters, different situations, and she starts to realize that maybe she should just say no, but it is so hard for her to say no, or to put people in their place when they are trying, obviously, to just take advantage of her. So I'm just really excited about this book because I hope that other, you know, YA readers are going to pick it up and realize that it is great to help others and, you know, to do things for others, but you always have to remember that sometimes you need to put yourself first. Next, we have The Society for Soulless Girls by Laura Steven, and this one I really enjoyed mostly because of the setting, the atmosphere, and all of that mystery vibe that the book had throughout the whole story. So in this book, we are in an elite school for girls. So a couple of years ago, there were some accidents, some girls died, and the school had to close its doors. Now they are reopening, and we follow two different characters that are attending the school. So one of them is Lottie. Lottie is a friend of one of those girls that lost their lives at the school, and her mission is to go to the school to figure out what happened to her friend, to uncover the mystery of her death. That's basically what she's there for. And then we follow Alice, which is her roommate, and she's a very different character, and it was really interesting to me because this book is told from both perspectives, so each character has their own chapters, and I found myself a lot more connected to Lottie than Alice, but I still kind of enjoy reading from both girls' perspectives. As I've mentioned, one of my favorite things from the book was the atmosphere. We have, you know, the creepy library in this old school. We have a tower with mysteries, and people are not supposed to get close to that tower, especially not the students. And it just had such beautiful, accomplished atmosphere. I felt like I was physically there, so I absolutely love the way that the writer has all of those descriptions on point. I also love to discover more, you know, the background about the school, about the people that were there centuries ago, about what could have happened that have caused these murders, kind of like the whole background thing that the place had. I absolutely love to learn about it, which is also part of why this book is immersive in a lot of ways, because you feel really like you are investigating this place yourself, as Lottie is doing at the moment. So if you're looking for a mysterious YA supernatural tale at a school, like an isolated setting in this school, this one is definitely one that you should pick up for this winter season. And now let's talk about a book that was really special. This was such a unique read, and that is The Paul Bear's Club by Paul Tremblay. And when I was reading this book, I was like, what's happening? It's such a different book from all of other Paul Tremblay's books. I feel like with each book he brings us something a little bit different, and that's what I have been enjoying to pick up his books, because I don't know exactly what to expect. And this is definitely one that I don't feel it's gonna be for any type of reader because of the way things are being told. So when our main character was in high school, he needed an extracurricular club in order, you know, for his applications to college to look nicer. So he decided to create this Paul Bear's Club. So what this club did was they attended poorly attended funerals. So basically, if somebody died and they didn't have any more living relatives, or maybe they were a homeless person and nobody would attend, then they would call them and they would come, so that at least there will be a couple of people there for the funeral. So that was what the club was for, and that's also where our main character met Mercy, which is basically the other main character in this book. We have Art Barbara and we have Mercy. Those are our two main characters. Now, as an adult, Art Barbara decided to write a book kind of telling his story, what happened to him when he was in high school, about this club, and about the relationship that he had with Mercy. So one of my favorite things about the book was the relationship between our two main characters and how you see the relationship evolve and develop and see everything that happened to them through the years. Now, the way that this book is put together is basically Art Barber's manuscript of that book that he wrote, and Mercy's kind of notes on the book and things that she says are not true, things that she has comments on. So it is kind of like a sort of an interactive book in that way. So you will, for example, see annotations on the side of the pages, and you also have like big entries like these, kind of like diary entries from Mercy's perspective. And I don't want to tell you too much about the main plot because I feel like it can be a little bit of a surprise if you don't know what the book is really about. It is not just about that club. It is about basically Art and Mercy's relationship and the type of friendship that they had throughout the years. But this is such a unique story told in such a unique way, and because of the way that the story is being told, I think it might not be for every type of reader, because you do have to go through all of the comments and all the diary entries and things like that, so it might not be for everybody. The story is also kind of weird and it gets weirder and weirder as you keep reading, but I really have to praise this book for being so original, which is something that you don't get to read so much nowadays, like really rare original books. The next one is such a good slasher that I hope you guys end up picking up after I try to sell this to you, and that is Camp Silver Oaks by Leroy Cross James. So Leroy is somebody that I got connected through Twitter, and he had this book coming out and he was asking for people to review it, and I said I would like a copy, and he gave me one. I read it. Long story short, absolutely loved it. If you, like me, love anything like Friday the 13th, 80s slasher, stuff like that, you need to pick up this book. It was so good. It was such a roller coaster of emotions, and I absolutely loved all the characters. There is also LGBTQ plus representation. So what else more do you want? Obviously, it is set by a camp and we have a lake. So of course you can tell throughout the whole book the love that the author has for those slashers from back in the day. And I feel like because I love them so much as well, I was just having the time of my life. And this is not a book that it's just trope after trope, like copied from those movies. It's things that are incorporated, but then there's also some twists and turns that you might not see coming. It does combine a couple of different types of, you know, subgenres of horror, I would say, without spoiling it too much for you guys. And this is not your typical, you know, summer camp where the teenagers go to just to spend a good summer. This is a specific camp where convicted teenagers that have, you know, committed a crime are being sent to instead of jail. So instead of jail, some of those kids, some of those teenagers are being sent to this camp for like a year or two, however the time might be. And when they get there, they realize that there is something really wrong with this camp and something really wrong with the lake. I feel like these managed to combine many like horror elements from the 80s, but also it basically translated them to a more contemporary story. I absolutely loved the pacing. I felt like the book kept me guessing what was going to happen next, and as I mentioned before, I also really enjoyed the characters. So needless to say, I really love this one. I absolutely love the cover, and I'm really excited to see what the author does next. And because he is a small author, you know, if you can go ahead and get the ebook or get the physical form, that would really support him. And now we have to talk about another author that I have also read most of his books, and I was not ready for this one, and that is The Heart by David Sodergren. Finally got to this one, and I'm glad that I did because this was absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10. One thing I'm gonna tell you, if you don't like body horror and body gore, just skip this one. Because it's quite intense. And it is interesting because I have read the other David Sodergren books, so I was a little bit scared to go into this one, because when you love an author so much, you're scared that their next book is not gonna meet the expectations that you had. But boy, oh boy, did he deliver with this one. So we are in a small village by the sea, and there is this corporation that wants to buy all the houses there to build a golf course. And some of the older residents of this village, they don't want to sell their homes, especially they don't want to see, you know, the village they grew up in turned into a golf course and, you know, be filled with these rich people and tourists and things like that. And so a couple of the really old residents are resisting and they don't want to sell. So that's basically the main pitch. And then one night there is a mist that comes from the sea and it brings something with it. I mean, I'm gonna leave it at there because again, I want people to get surprised and experience all the twists and turns of the story without being spoiled by me. So I'm gonna keep it vague like that. But what I can tell you is David Sodergren is such a wonderful writer. In all his books, his characters have been such different ages, and he's managed so well to always create these characters that are so believable and they are so alive. In this case, we have like a really old woman and she just feels real, you know. In the last book that I read by him, it was a teenager that was kidnapped, but he also translated that character so well. So I am just really impressed by how good he is at telling the story from so different, like different types of characters, different type of ages, different types of settings. So it's definitely an auto-buy author for me, as you guys know. What you can expect from this one is a very moody, kind of gloomy tale about this town by the sea, with the mist coming to the village, covering everything, bringing something with it. It is very atmospheric, and this book takes some turns that I was not ready for. But it does get really intense, as I've mentioned, when it comes to the gore and the body horror. There's a lot of descriptions where I was like, that's a little bit much. So just be aware of that if you don't want that. If you've read all the David Sodergren books, you know that he tends to be kind of graphic, so you probably already know what you're getting yourself into. It is also another one of those books that once I started reading it, I just couldn't stop. I couldn't put it down, which is something that always happens to me with David Sodergren. I feel like if I'm ever on a reading slump, I need to pick up a book by him because it really helps me so much. It just gets me hooked and addicted from the first page. So if you're in a reading slump and you don't mind a little bit of gore, I really recommend you to pick this one up. And as always, I'm really excited to see what he does next because like I said, I'm gonna get anything he publishes. And last but definitely not least, you guys know that I have just reread Mina and the Undead by Amy McCall in preparation for the sequel. So because I read this book when it came out and that was a little bit ago, I wanted to give it a reread to make sure that I had everything fresh in my memory. And I took some notes and I had a live show with Amy talking a little bit in depth about the book, asking her some questions. So if you read the book but you didn't catch up the live, it is on my channel available for you guys. You can still go ahead and rewatch it. And I will have another live with her to talk about the sequel, but that will be in October. I don't feel like I have to explain what the book is about anymore because I feel like I'm a broken record at this point. But this has again, you know, shown me how fast-pacing and adventure-filled the book is and how amazing it is again for when you're in a reading slump, for example, because it's just so easy to read and it's just so much fun and you just want to keep on reading. It's really addictive, and I have the same feeling now with the sequel that I'm currently reading. So I'm just really excited to talk to you guys about the sequel as well. If you have read Mina and the Undead and you loved it, do get the sequel because Mina and the Slayers is bigger and bloodier and you're gonna have a lot more fun with a lot more characters. So yeah, I really am having such a good time with these books. So if you're looking for something spooky to read during Halloween season, these two books are also perfect. Alright you guys, I hope that you enjoyed my wrap up for the month of August. These are the things that I managed to read in that month. Let me know how your summer reads went because we're already now in spooky season officially. So summer's over. Bye bye, ciao, see you later. So let me know still what was the best summer horror book you read this summer in 2022. Let's talk about those books that we managed to read in summer. And thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye!